Alright, so for this week we're going to be discussing actually some stuff that's not in your textbook. First I'm going to go over some things about amnesia and some interesting facts about it, and then I'm going to discuss a memory effect that was not in the book, and I was kind of disappointed because this is really interesting. Alright, so first off, even before you took this class, you probably know what amnesia is. It's when you've lost who you are, your identity, stuff you knew, you can't recognize people you know. And, you probably think of it as retrograde amnesia, a loss of your past. But actually the more likely type of amnesia you will have is called anterograde amnesia, which is where a brain injury has caused you to not be able to process short-term memories into long-term memories. Movies sort of like Finding Dory and Adam Sandler's 50 First Dates are a bit more accurate in their portrayal of amnesia, especially in 50 First Dates. You've read in your book about H.M. who lost part of his hippocampus in surgery, and from then on, he always thought he was 27. He read the same magazine over and over again. He constantly thought it was the same day. He couldn't process his short-term memory into long-term memories. And in 50 First Dates, the character Lucy gets into a car accident and she gets a brain injury too. And from then on, she can't process short-term memory into long-term memory. So she repeats the same day over and over again. So that's how the movie's portrayed. But several questions the book doesn't address is, how much of you is actually lost when you lose your memory? Now most people think if you have retrograde amnesia, you've lost everything. Things you like, things you used to do, people you know, you've lost yourself, right? You don't have any memories. And memories, our prior experiences, are the building blocks of our personality and our behavior. So if you've lost that, you don't have a personality or behavior. I mean, if you suddenly forgot why you have a phobia of dogs, like the phobia of dogs comes from a dog chased you up the street and since then you've been scared. But if you lose that memory, are you still terrified of dogs? Alright, so there was this TV show called Castle. And in one of the episodes, a man walks into the police precinct and he tells them, "I need help. I have no idea who I am. I can't remember anything." The man has retrograde amnesia. So they call in a psychologist to try and figure out who this guy is. It's like, we're not sure what to do. The psychologist thinks about it for a moment and he says, "Well, get a piece of paper and a pen. We're going to see if we can get this guy to sign his name." And everyone thinks he's crazy. He doesn't remember his name. He can't sign it. But after they hand him the paper and the pen, he signs his name, which they're all really fascinated by, even the guy with amnesia, who they call J, because that's the only letter they recognize. But how is that sort of thing possible? Well, according to the psychologist on the show, he begins discussing the different forms of memory, specifically episodic and motor skill memory. Now, Jay has lost his episodic memory, his, what's happened to him, who he was, that sort of thing. However, his skill memory should still be intact. If you'll remember back in Module 10, your know-how memories are stored back in your cerebellum, your skill memories. Now, episodic memories are stored in your prefrontal cortex. Jay hit himself with his prefrontal cortex, so that's damaged. However, everything in his lower brain, the cerebellum, where skill memories are, is still intact. So he still remembers how to sign his name. Think about when you sign your name. People just hand you a piece of paper, or you're going through checkout, like, sign your name. You probably don't even look when you do it, but you do it more or less the same way every time. So Jay still knows how to sign his name. And it's actually potentially possible. I always wondered, if there were articles that discussed people who had lost their episodic memory, but they knew how to play baseball, do they still know how to throw a fastball or a curveball, even though they don't really probably know what they're doing? It's sort of a foundation for relearning. If you've learned to do something, wants you to do it again, especially something physical. That's muscle memory, skill memory. Alright, and then I read this interesting article online by a man named Daniel Levitin, I believe, and he was talking about this guy he knew named Tom. Now, he knew Tom back in college when they both had the same class, and then throughout his life, he knew about Tom. One point they worked in the same building, he saw him off and on. He was the kind of guy you said hi to, and you'd say you're kind of a friend, but not a close friend. Just, someone you know from class, hi, walk on, that kind of guy. But later he learns that Tom has a brain tumor, and Tom is starting to lose his episodic memory. someone suggests he go see them, he's a little uncomfortable about it. He doesn't know Tom that well. So he starts thinking about the Tom he used to know in college. Tom had this he would stare at people intensely, not in sort of a creepy way, but like he was studying you the entire time. He was really excited to learn. He had this really upbeat personality, kind of quirky. And so when he goes to see Tom, he doesn't expect to see any of that. After all, Tom's losing his episodic memory, so he's not going to be Tom anymore, right? Once he goes in there, he starts talking to Tom, telling Tom what he knows. Like, well, I didn't know you real well, sorry. But as he's talking, he starts noticing Tom's still staring at him with that intense gaze. Tom is still got kind of that upbeat attitude. Like, he's like, yeah, I lose my memory, it's not so bad. Those sort of things. So Tom's personality is sort of still intact. Well, how would that be possible if his episodic memory is gone? That, I think, comes down to brain chemistry. So you have two kinds of people, some who are introverted and some who are extroverted. Those with an introverted brain are easily overstimulated by too much information. You take them out to a big party and they can't handle all that and they have to leave. An extrovert, on the other hand, will go to the party in order to receive that stimulation that they need. So, if either of these two people lost their memory, would they still technically be an introvert and an extrovert? Would they still have those little quirks of personality that are theirs? Would a student who's so pumped to learn, they want to know everything, would they still have that drive to learn when they lose their memory? I'm not sure. Go ahead and try and look this kind of stuff up. This is really interesting stuff. Alright, now we're going to get into the interesting false memory trick that your book does not discuss. I'm going to name three famous quotes. I want you to tell me what movies they're from. First one is, "Mirror, mirror on the wall." Second one is, "Luke, I am your father." The third one is, "Fly, my pretties, fly." Take a moment, think about what movies they're from. Which you probably already know. You know these quotes. That's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, that's Empire Strikes Back or Star Wars, and that's Wizard of Oz. Yeah, you know these. Sorry, you've gotten all the questions wrong. None of these quotes are from those movies, despite the fact that you are right now remembering exactly when those quotes occur. There's Luke hanging off the thing, he just has his hand cut off, and Darth Vader says, "Luke, I am your father." The witch is standing in front of the mirror saying, "Mirror, mirror on the wall." And then the Wicked Witch of the West is telling her monkeys to go capture Dorothy. You know these quotes and these images. These happen in the movie. Actually, they don't. The original quotes are, "No, I am your father," "Magic mirror on the wall," and the witch just saying "fly" over and over. Technically, now fly, fly. So, how is it possible you remember these things, but technically they didn't happen? Well, this is from a thing called the Mandela effect. The Mandela effect got its name from when a South African leader named Nelson Mandela died in prison in the 1800s. And it was a big deal. I mean, you saw the funeral on TV, his wife got on TV and there was crying. There were riots in South Africa over this. They were just so upset that their leader, Nelson Mandela, died in prison. It was horrible. Except he wasn't dead. Nelson Mandela didn't die until 2013. He was very much alive. And yet, people during that time period, up and down, will swear they heard about this. This is what happened. They heard about the riots. They saw the funeral on TV. It was in the news. But none of it ever happened. So how the heck do they remember these things? Well, most of it's probably an encoding error. They've probably heard a snippet of something and their brain filled it in. They talked about false memories in the book and false memory syndrome, where you can implant a false memory in people's heads. Now, for things like movie quotes, if you pay attention, they're one word off. Or in the case of Wizard of Oz, it's a combination of two scenes. The one where she goes, "I'll get you, my pretty," and "fly, fly." So after watching, 2 hours of movie, you're probably not going to remember every single thing on it. You're probably not going to watch it over and over again to memorize it. So when you hear a misinterpreted quote, there's an encoding error, and you think, that's close enough. After all, your brain's got 1,000 other things to worry about right now. It doesn't need to memorize every single quote. And the quotes in this case are repeated. They've been spoofed thousands of times over and over, so you start to think, yeah, this is what happened. Not entirely sure how this happened in Mandela's case, but my guess is someone mentioned that Mandela had died, and people just kind of accepted it and sort of put it in their head over a big thing. This is like what that psychologist did to Alan Alda when she convinced him that he didn't like eggs, even though he never had a problem eating boiled eggs. So go ahead, look this kind of stuff up. There's lots of things about the Mandela effect. Like things you thought you knew that are actually wrong. They're usually little things, but still. Sort of take a look over them and see how you might have actually encoded them wrong. Alright, that's all the time I have this week. I'll see y'all in class next week. Don't forget to turn in your assignments and your quizzes are due. Alright, bye.